Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Whether you're parking your car or taking public transportation, it can be expensive to get around San Diego. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. We'll have more on rising MTS fares in a moment, but we begin with high parking prices. Right now, it costs $10 an hour to park downtown during special events. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler says members of the City Council want to lower that rate.
The San Diego City Council committee focused on economic development met today to consider lower special event parking rates downtown. Councilmember Raul Campillo says increasing special event parking rates is needed, but the current policy hurts businesses and workers.
We understand that demand pricing is the right way to move forward, and we need to manage that congestion. But the current version in place is too blunt. It's too aggressive.
Campillo is proposing a partial rollback of the more expensive rates for downtown street parking that started in September of last year. Jason Nichols from Radar Report helps restaurants compare sales to other similar businesses. Nichols says his data shows restaurants downtown have been in a slump since the new pricing went into effect.
San Diego as a whole, year over year right now, you see about a 3% increase in all restaurants in revenue. But in this specific area, the Gaslamp specifically, you see anywhere from a 12 to 20% decrease in sales.
Justine Murray from the Downtown Partnership blames the cost of parking.
When you have something that's $10 an hour for special event parking fees, that's no longer a parking management tool. It's a barrier to entry to downtown.
Campillo hoped the committee would accept his plan to lower the cost to $5 an hour, shrink the area to around 5 blocks, and limit enforcement time to 5 hours during events. District 6 Councilmember Kent Lee says the current plan is too expensive, but that Councilmember Campillo's alternative plan is too cheap.
To be very fair, though, I think when it comes to parking management and trying to match pricing up to what we consider to be the right price dynamically, to me, $5 is actually also too low.
This price is too high, that price is too low. The committee is looking for the Goldilocks of parking policy.
If we don't right-size the policy, everyone thinking about investing and improving downtown will think twice, which is to say the policy is not working the way it should because it hurts workers and it confuses the public and collects far less than it was projected to.
With a unanimous vote, the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee directed the city attorney to work with Campillo's office and create a new special events section to the municipal code. In the meantime, the $10 an hour rate for special events stays in effect. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
You could be paying more to ride public transit in San Diego County as early as this fall. The area's largest transit agency voted today to raise fares. KPBS reporter John Carroll says MTS board members were faced with a difficult choice.
The Metropolitan Transit System charges different fares for different riders. Students and seniors pay less than everybody else. Some of those fares haven't gone up in 17 years. Meanwhile, the price of just about everything else has. MTS Board Chair Stephen Whitburn says the issue comes down to a simple, stark choice.
If we're going to close the gap by increasing revenue, we have to increase fares. The alternative is cutting service, reducing the service that our riders depend upon.
Public testimony to the board was largely negative on fare hikes, several speakers saying MTS would be balancing their budget on the backs of those who can least afford it. But just a few feet away from the boardroom, a very different story. We came downtown to MTS headquarters to ask some riders what they thought if the decision comes down to between cutting service or raising fares, and our very unscientific sample tracked with what MTS has found out when they've surveyed their ridership. That is, that they would rather raise fares.
No, if it's a small rate, then I think it'll be okay for people. They'll probably still be able to do it, and a lot of people will be more happy because they'll still be able to get around as they usually do.
I mean, if they cut down service on the trolleys, then nobody will be able to get around at certain times and stuff. So honestly, I'd say raise it because I know half the people don't pay.
Support of fare increases over service cuts also came from the transit advocacy group Circulate Planning and Policy.
We either make it a little bit more expensive to ride or reduce the service that MTS can offer. And unfortunately, if we reduce service, all we're inevitably going to see is less ridership, which leads to less fare box recovery revenue. And it's just going to continue what we call this transit doom loop of then additional service cutbacks, less revenue, and so on and so forth.
The MTS board vote was not unanimous. Some members said they didn't think enough other opportunities to raise revenue had been explored. But in the end, a majority approved a phased hike of fares. The recommendations now go to SANDAG, which is expected to make the final decision by June. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The North County Transit District Board also voted to recommend a fare increase of up to 40%. SANDAG will also have to decide on that recommendation.
I'm Ariella Scalise, and coming up tonight, under a clear to partly cloudy sky, temperatures drop into the upper 50s. A warm weekend ahead, but we're already tracking the next storm. That's going to bring us some cooler and breezier conditions. It's all coming up.
San Diego City Mayor Todd Gloria released the preliminary budget of fiscal year 2027. Father Joe's Villages is among the organizations impacted by the funding cuts. The nonprofit runs day-to-day operations at the Neil Good Day Center on 17th and K Street downtown. Funding for the day center is set to be cut in the budget, which advocates say would be a big mistake.
You know, it was a surprise to us. We knew that there was going to be reductions in the budget for homelessness. We didn't realize that the reductions for the day center would be down to zero, completely closing the program.
This place is a lifeline to thousands of people in San Diego.
The city says the proposed budget for homelessness services is $97 million. The budget includes cutting funding for the center, which is close to $950,000. City Council is expected to vote on final approval for next year's budget in June. Forming a public utility company could save San Diegans $500 a year. That is according to a new report the city commissioned. KPBS reporter Katie Heisen says it estimates it would cost the city about $2.4 and $7.6 billion to buy the required infrastructure from San Diego Gas and Electric.
Public power advocates say the study proves their point.
This studied municipalization in one of the most conservative ways possible, and it still shows long-term savings for San Diegans.
Isaiah Glasso is the program coordinator for Public Power San Diego.
It's no longer a debate if public power is cheaper. It's just a matter of when the savings hit and how much the savings are.
SDG&E calls the study flawed, saying it omits major risks to safety and reliability and understates the costs of, quote, seizing its electric grid. They value the company's infrastructure at $9 billion. SDG&E rates are more than 6 times what they were in 2000. At the end of last year, more than 1 in 3 customers were behind on their bill. There are dozens of public utilities in California. They don't have to earn profits for shareholders. The state legislative analyst's office say they charge about half the rates of SDG&E on average. Serena Pelka is a policy advocate for Climate Action Campaign.
50% less expensive is not a drop in the bucket. That is significant cost savings that can go to taking stress off of feeding your families, of having more leeway in your budgets every month.
A public utility would also offer local control, so the city could make decisions that align better with its climate and equity goals, the report says. It says making the utility public could take a decade. Longer if the city and SDG&E can't agree on a price, and the city has to seize the property through eminent domain. The report was presented to the city's Environment Committee on Thursday. The mayor said Wednesday the city is facing a budget deficit of at least $118 million. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
Last week, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors voted to clear the way for a massive and deeply controversial data center project in the heart of the region. Now the focus is shifting to the Imperial Valley's powerful power and water agency, the Imperial Irrigation District. Our South Bay and Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki has been covering this and joins me now. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Maya. Thanks for having me.
So just to start, if you could please give us a reminder of what happened last week.
Right. Well, this proposed project is a massive data center complex for a currently unknown artificial intelligence company. It would be 950,000 square feet with a large battery system, a bank of natural gas generators for its backup power, and its own power substation. The developer behind the project is a brand new company called Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing. They're based in Huntington Beach. They want to build this project on county land in the city of Imperial, very close to some residential neighborhoods. The project has been facing fierce opposition from a large coalition of residents from across the valley, along with some local and state officials who worry about the potential environmental and health impacts of the facility. But last week, the developer overcame a major hurdle when the Imperial County Board of Supervisors voted to combine several parcels of land for the project. This lot merger was the only step where county planners said they had discretion over whether the project moved forward.
So Corey, tell us what happens now. Can the developer just go ahead and get this data center up and running?
Right. Well, not quite. They still have a ways to go. As of last week, Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing still doesn't have suppliers for energy and water. That's important because the facility is going to need a lot of those two things. It could need more electricity than all of Imperial County used in 2024, and it could also need 750,000 gallons of water per day. That's about the same as roughly 6,000 Imperial County residents. The developer originally wanted to buy recycled municipal wastewater from nearby cities. They were in talks to do that, but those cities have backed out. Now they say they're looking at several other options, including buying from the County of San Diego. But either way, the energy for the project would have to come from IID. So far, IID has been pretty quiet about the data center. One of the district's directors wrote an editorial opposing it, but other officials have declined to take a public stance. But now, the agency could have the final say on whether the project comes online.
So Corey, this is a pivotal moment for IID, right? I mean, they have elections coming up this year.
Yeah, that's right. IID is a public irrigation district, so its board of directors are elected by Imperial County voters. 3 out of 5 are up for re-election this year. And the developer, Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing, is already wading into the election cycle. The company is pouring money into the race for one of IID's directors. They're actually backing their own spokesperson, a local journalist named Carlos Duran, in a bid to defeat one of IID's incumbent directors, Alex Cardenas. Sebastian Rucci is the CEO of Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing, and he says the reason for this is because he alleges that IID has not been fair to the company and has been trying to sabotage the data center project. Rucci talked about this on KQD's forum last week. Here's a little bit of what he said.
It's not like I was given a transparent process that was very easy. You sit down and meet. I was actually given the absolute reverse, which I thought was illegal. So I handled it politically instead of going back at it legally.
So you mentioned fierce opposition earlier. What do opponents of the data center project have to say about this?
Yeah, opponents of the data center are also taking measures into their own hands. Residents are launching recalls of 2 county supervisors and gathering signatures for a November ballot measure that would ban data centers on county land. And they're also rallying support for IID candidates who have pledged to oppose the data center project. Corinne Eugenio is one of those candidates. She's currently the chairwoman of the IID board of directors and is also up for re-election this year. And for months, Eugenio has been a vocal opponent of the data center project. I spoke with her about this on Monday.
To buy candidates to put on our board that are only serving his agenda is dangerous, and it's scary, right? We need people like ourselves who love it here, who are raising kids here, who actually care about our community, that are, you know, working on behalf of their own families and themselves, and not people that can be easily bought by outsiders.
So what happens next? Would this come up for a vote?
Right. Well, At the moment, that's not entirely clear. Eugenio says the board of directors would need to hold an official vote on any contracts for power or water, but she says the agency also has to do its own review first, and that could take some time. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens before the election in June.
Corey, thank you so much for your reporting on this.
Thank you, Maya.
And if you have a tip for KPBS's investigations team, you can send an email to investigations@kpbs.org or message them on our secure signal line at the number on your screen, 619-594-8177.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the News Hour, Israel and Lebanon agreed to a 10-day ceasefire. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Local gas prices continue to fall gradually. Today marks the 8th drop in a row. That's the longest streak since a 12-day streak from December 9th to the 20th, according to figures from AAA and the Oil Price Information Index. The average price for a gallon of regular gas is $5.88. That's more than 6.5 cents less than a week ago, but still over 30 cents more than a month ago. Nationally, gas prices continue to stay above $4 a gallon as the war with Iran remains unresolved. It's putting a strain on everyday Americans, but especially those who rely on their cars for a living. Lee Waldman reports rideshare drivers are on the brink of quitting over these higher gas prices.
There are drivers that are having their cars repossessed. There are drivers that are going to food banks. I'm one of them because I can't afford not making enough money.
These are uncertain times for rideshare drivers like Urla Phillips in Canada, who is watching fuel costs rise while the money coming in stays the same.
It has been really difficult.
Last month, before the national average for gas reached the $4 milestone, a rideshare driver in Atlanta was wondering how she would continue.
I'm working now, for rideshare, and I don't know what that's going to look like next week, because if gas is $4 a gallon, I'm done.
Rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft announced ways to help drivers save at the pump. Uber offered drivers $1 off per gallon through the cashback platform Upside, and an additional 5% on top of existing rates if they use the Uber Pro card to buy gas. Lyft offered its elite drivers up to 2% cashback through its own Lyft Direct debit card. All of this comes as Energy Secretary Chris Wright says oil prices will likely continue to climb.
We're going to see energy prices, high and maybe even rising until we get the ships, meaningful ship traffic through the Straits of Hormuz.
Patrick DeHaan with Gas Buddy agrees, saying the only alternative would be demand declining.
Which is obviously very unlikely here in the interim, especially as we get into warmer weather. Americans are driving more, not less.
In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
A tough economy and inflation is driving tourism way down, and the city of San Diego is feeling that drop. Anyone who books a hotel or short-term rental pays a transient occupancy tax. Well, this year, the money collected from the tax is falling short by $7.4 million. According to the city's mid-year budget report, fewer people within the U.S. are traveling. The city is now expecting revenue from all those tourists to decline instead of grow. Hotels are already feeling the impact.
There's so much talk about affordability. Well, our city leaders haven't really put the hospitality industry up for success in trying to help us become an affordable city. They've increased prices for the operators.
City leaders do expect some tourism rebound this year, but say it's still not enough to get back to pre-pandemic levels. A blockbuster court decision involving how most people buy concert tickets and a pair of films about iconic athletes. Here's David Daniel with the Hollywood Minute.
A jury has found Live Nation and Ticketmaster operate as an illegal monopoly. The Justice Department and 39 state attorneys general had sued Live Nation, claiming it and its subsidiary Ticketmaster controlled virtually every aspect of the live music ecosystem. A second trial will determine whether to grant the state's request to break up the company or make other structural changes.
I grew up living below the poverty line. I just felt so inferior to everyone.
Those things drove him to search for an outlet. Basketball became that outlet.
And it was an eye-opener.
2 new documentaries take unique athletes beyond the headlines. Jerry West, The Logo, includes the final interviews with the late basketball star, who was inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame as an Olympic player, a pro player, and a general manager, and is widely believed to be the model for the NBA logo. The film is now streaming on Prime Video.
O seu brincar vai nos ajudar a ganhar uma Copa do Mundo.
Era o momento dele. Foi algo diferente, algo que fez encantar o mundo.
Meanwhile, Ronaldinho, the one and only, profiles one of the greatest soccer players of all time, from his awards and championships at every level to his free-spirited lifestyle to his legal troubles. The documentary is now streaming on Netflix. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat remain go-to platforms for teens, but new data shows teen use each one differently, and they say that it affects their well-being in different ways. Karen Kefa has this look at what families need to know.
A survey released Wednesday by the Pew Research Center asked teens and parents about how they use particular apps. And Pew found teens and parents have some differences of opinion on that usage, and also a disconnect on how much screen time is a healthy amount.
Teens turn to Instagram and TikTok for news, entertainment, and keeping up with celebrities, and lean on Snapchat for direct messaging, posting, and socializing with friends. That's according to a new survey released Wednesday by the Pew Research Center. Michelle Faverio, one of the report's lead authors, says overall, connections are teens' most positive takeaway from using the platforms.
A big thing that teens say that they get out of these sites is connection to other people. They find people who share interests in them. It's a space that they are able to express their creativity and stay connected to family and friends.
At the same time, roughly 3/4 of teens surveyed agreed that online harassment and bullying is a problem for people their age, even if a minority reported firsthand experience with some sort of cyberbullying.
It's a family issue that parents are grappling with. And we found that overwhelmingly parents are having conversations with their teens about the teen social media use. So 85% of parents said that they've done this.
Most parents, meanwhile, told Pew social media sites hurt rather than help their teens' sleep, productivity, and mental health, with parents more likely to say their teen spends too much time on the apps and in front of their screens than the teens say themselves.
And these insights give a little bit more food for thought on the heels of that landmark verdict last month that found Meta and YouTube liable for harms caused by addictive platform design and could prompt changes to how social media platforms handle younger users moving forward. In Washington, I'm Karen Kefa.
KPBS has a special series all about social media, how it's used by young people and how parents can set boundaries. It's called Screen Time. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts and at kpbs.org.
All right, a good time to check in on those weather headlines here, as an offshore wind is going to bring us slightly higher temperatures tomorrow compared to where we've been recently. And we do have a warm weekend ahead as the winds begin to ease inland. Cooler and breezier conditions with the next system that we're tracking for next week. How do temperatures shape up tonight? Well, we're down to about 59 in San Diego, cooler in Oceanside at 53 and Chula Vista 55. Borrego Springs, you'll drop down to the 50s, and a nice night, Mount Laguna down to 41. So some cooler air has taken over parts of California, Nevada, back into Arizona. We'll see temperatures near the historical average as we head into the day Friday, so coming back up after some recent cooler weather. 82 with a day's worth of sunshine in Borrego Springs. Lots of sunshine in Mount Laguna, a cool 53. San Diego, just a few clouds at 73. Oceanside and Chula Vista into the lower end of the 70s as well. All right, weekend looking good for us here as things stay dry and we begin to warm up. If you're doing any travel, Northern California, back across coastal regions into the Pacific Northwest are going to see some more weekend rain and then a big cool down on the way for the central U.S. after we've had plenty of thunderstorms, and those still linger along the East Coast this weekend. All right, how about this? A lot of that sunny 75 weather over the next couple of days, but turning a bit cooler early next week for the coast. We'll rise back up to 80 degrees inland on Saturday, and then a slight cool down here on the way, lower 70s by next Tuesday. All right, for the mountain forecast here, a slow climb in temperatures with 57 degrees on Saturday, comfortably cool Sunday, and then staying quite nice Monday and Tuesday. Desert outlook is looking pretty good. Comfortable weather Friday and Saturday, but we do turn hotter Sunday and Monday, back to the 90s, and the temperatures trimmed a bit more as we head into next Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
If summer is suddenly motivating you to get fit, let it jumpstart your journey to being healthier. Mandy Gaither has advice from a doctor.
If you're eyeing that swimsuit and want to get in shape for summer, you're not alone.
There's no question that if someone were to start exercising now, they can certainly be more fit by summer.
Dr. Matthew Anastasi with Mayo Clinic says hitting the health target should be something you aim for year-round. But if summer is spurring that journey, just go with it.
I think it's always an important question to ask as to what is someone's current fitness level.
If you're already exercising on a regular basis, Anastasi says to increase intensity of those workouts, whether you're focusing on upper or lower body or abdominal muscles. If you're just starting out, have a goal to work light exercises into your daily life and build upon it.
It's important to look at both disciplines as an important aspect of your health, and that's helping from your endurance as well as from developing muscle mass and increased strength.
To do that, Anastasi says combine cardio activities like walking, hiking, running, jogging, or biking with strength training, which could be regular weightlifting or using your own body weight through resistance training. The other critical part of fitness is maintaining a well-balanced diet. Anastasi recommends keeping a food journal to see what you're eating and drinking in a week.
When you look at that from an objective perspective, you can easily recognize opportunities to make adjustments.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on NPR's Morning Edition. How the Artemis II astronauts are readjusting to life on Earth after their historic mission around the moon. And KPBS Roundtable is talking about the sexual assault allegations against Congressman Eric Swalwell that shook up the California governor's race. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.